Good morning, everybody. We are in Chapel Sunday School, and we're up to Revelation chapter 9. We just felt we really weren't ready to go on to chapter 10. There's a few more things about chapter 9 we're going to focus in on today, particularly dealing with verse 11. This whole scenario that a star fell from heaven and it opened up the bottomless pit, and all of these creatures came forth. These creatures were called locusts, but they're not really locusts at all. Um, they they have the face of a man. They have tails that sting like scorpions, teeth of a lion, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Ivrit, that's Hebrew, tongue is Abaddon or Abaddon, but in the Yavani tongue, that's the Greek language, has his name as Apollyon. Abaddon is Hebrew for destruction, and Apollyon is Greek for destroyer. Abaddon has fallen from heaven and has been given the key to the shaft of the abyss. In Hebrew, this star is called Kokav Nephal. Kokav is the Hebrew word for star. Nephal means to fall, fallen star. The adjective always comes after the noun in Hebrew, which means fallen star. It can also imply a devil Nephal, one of the original fallen watcher angels that we studied about. So I want to show you two videos today. Um, might be considered chasing a little bit of a rabbit, but there was some. We mentioned CERN last week, CERN, and there several didn't know anything about CERN. It's in Geneva, Switzerland, and this is a picture of part of it. It's called the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. And what it does is 27 miles long, and it sends protons in either direction, thousands of them, and they collide into each other at nearly the speed of light. And they study the results of that, and they have found that it actually, there's been some examples, tests, that a different matter was even created when they collided these protons, which then they're trying to say, oh, we think we found the answer to the Big Bang theory that matter can be created by smashing elements together. But there's an aspect to this that we're going to look at that may be connected to this bottomless pit and what will be unleashed out of the bottomless pit with all these demonic entities coming out as described in Revelation 9. And so there's an aspect of this machine's world's largest machine in CERN that is touching on opening up portals for another dimension and all these kinds of things. And there's a lot of um, controversial aspects of it with connected to demonic entities in the demonic realm. And so let's just watch this video, and then I'll say something about the next video I'm going to show you. Okay.
What if someone told you that the world's largest science machine is also the source of some of the scariest stories of modern times? Beneath the tranquil border of Switzerland and France lies the home of CERN's Large Hadron Collider, LHC. By day, this huge instrument is making superb discoveries, but at night, it carries with it rumours, fear, and even panic among those very scientists charged with running it. These are experiments at CERN that terrify even scientists themselves. Then there was the strange 2016 incident. A video circulated online showing what appeared to be a mock human sacrifice in the courtyard of CERN, right in front of the statue of Shiva the Destroyer, a gift from India that symbolizes creation and destruction. The footage triggered panic. Around the world, people believed the lab was not just doing science, but performing occult rituals linked to its experiment. The notion that the universe might be actively fighting CERN experiments sounds absurd, but it is exactly the kind of story that keeps the public and even some experts uneasy about what goes on underground. When one steps back and looks at it, the work at CERN is simultaneously the greatest triumph of human curiosity and one of the most unnerving ventures into unknown territory. It is not simply a machine smashing particles, it is an experiment that touches the boundaries of what we know, what we imagine, and what we fear. Scientists conduct it with precision, discipline, and caution. But the public sees something more: a weapon on the edge of nature, a portal into the hidden dimensions, a machine that might accidentally awaken the dark seeds of the universe. In the end, CERN's story reminds us that the frontier of science often lies close to the frontier of the imaginable. The fact that scientists can even ask questions like, could we create a black hole? Or could we open a gateway to another dimension? Is both a sign of human achievement and human caution.
Science or occult. But it's not just the fuzzy memory that makes us suspect CERN. There's other, more disturbing stuff too. You see, in 2004, the Indian government gifted CERN this bronze statue of Shiva called the Nataraja.
Shiva statue was actually a gift when India became an associate state member, so in 2017.
Now, in Hinduism, Shiva is a principal deity and a member of the Hindu Trinity alongside Brahma and Vishnu. In Hindu mythology, he is revered as the god of destruction, transformation, and regeneration, and is also considered the first yogi and the father of the universe. Now, it's quite interesting that there should be a religious symbol placed right outside a pillar of science. For all we've ever known, the two of them are very far apart and hardly have any middle ground. And yet, for some reason, CERN higher-ups thought it would be a good idea to have it right outside the doors of their headquarters. But the story with this statue takes an even more disturbing turn. The Hindu god, Nataraja, represents the eternal cycle of creation, but also destruction. This destructive force can also be seen as constructive by generating new life from death, represented by Shiva's skull crown, signifying conquest over death. The idea is that this god stands for the creation of the universe through a total destruction of whatever was here before it. In the statue, Shiva is seen dancing in a ring of fire, and for many people, this isn't just symbolic. It's a mark of the end of one universe, followed by the beginning of another new one. On CERN's official website, they claim the statue was gifted to them because of the similarities between the cosmic dance of the Nataraj and the modern study of the cosmic dance of subatomic particles. But for many people, the statue only signifies one thing: CERN is headed a sect who either worship destruction or are looking to use that destruction to create something new. It all sounds very crazy, but it's also worth looking into, especially when you consider this next fact: the ritual. In 2016, this strange video got leaked. In it, at first we see what looks like the scene of a ritual in the CERN headquarters compound, right beside the Shiva statue. But then, the video becomes even more disturbing. A group of hooded figures walk into the scene, and then take premeditated positions near the statue. One of them takes off her black robe to kneel in their middle, and that's when it happens. Right outside the premises of one of the world's greatest pillars of science, a human gets stabbed as part of some sick, occultic ritual. Till date, we don't know if that was a real ritual or a hoax. When CERN did address the leak, they claimed it was a work of fiction showing a contrived scene. However, random people couldn't have gotten access to CERN's front door without some sort of verified means of access. And who else would have had a verified means of access to CERN's porch but for CERN employees, scientists who worked at the facility? Or maybe a bunch of interns who just let their humor go a little too far. The organization wouldn't condone this kind of action, as it breached CERN's professional guidelines. So those involved had been identified and appropriate measures taken. And that was it. Just a few vague, political-sounding sentences about something which, if true, could have been a murder. But then, even if we settle for the lighter possibility that this was just a skit, it still leaves you wondering. Art has always been an imitation of life. And if a group of trained scientists at one of the world's most famed labs thought to come together to act this out, knowing full well that this might get to the rest of the world, it makes you wonder, what else is going on behind closed doors? If they let us see this, because it's obvious they let us see it. The person recording the video was quite loud. So if they let us see this, what aren't they letting us see? It's quite unsettling, isn't it? Hoax rituals carried out beside a statue of a god of destruction, outside a lab. People remembering things amiss. Something is really weird here. It's a very unsettling thing to accept, but something might have happened that night. Something that was done with intent, and it might have affected all of us. Future circular collider. Are we doubling the mistake? But the story doesn't even nearly stop there. Because with the latest news coming out of CERN, things just might get even more absurd. Reportedly, there are plans in place to create a new Large Hadron Collider, this time much bigger than the one we already know. They've named it the Future Circular Collider, and although it's still in the ideation stage, it's proposed to be around 56 miles in circumference. That's almost 4 times the size of the current one. The idea behind it is to achieve much higher collision energies, with a focus on exploring new areas of physics, such as the nature of dark energy and dark matter, as well as producing heavier particles. At the same time, the existing LHC is undergoing an upgrade, with a primary goal of increasing the number of particle collisions by a factor of 10. And why? Well, it's to get a much clearer picture of the Higgs boson and its properties, particularly its self-interaction. But many critics, such as German theoretical physicist Sabine Hossenfelder, feel these new projects might be unnecessary. For them, the potential rewards of these projects, such as more precise measurements of the Higgs boson, don't justify the massive investment when compared to alternative research directions or other societal needs. Instead, they feel it'd be wiser to utilize the funds and scientists meant for these white elephant projects on other projects such as dark matter research. Now, while their observations make sense, one has to wonder, isn't this just us tampering with things we should leave alone from another angle? Especially with all the talk of what the 2 Voyager spacecraft are reported to be discovering in deep space. And if we were to actually go ahead with making these new colliders, wouldn't that just be us recreating our mistakes on a far larger scale? This new upgrade to the current collider could mean we would be able to increase particle collisions by the power of 10. If the current one has already warped our reality this much, how bad would it get if we went ahead with this upgrade? But what if we're asking the wrong questions? Maybe although CERN weren't necessarily successful enough to open up a portal, they rewrote reality a little. In that case, would we ever be able to prove that that happened? Or will all we've ever had be the word of scientific anomalies like Lufkin? Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Okay, well, that was pretty interesting. Maybe some information you'd never heard of before. It is kind of mind-boggling, the size of this human-made machine, 27 miles long, 100 feet under, 100 yards, 100 feet underground, 27 miles long, to conduct experiments. But I've got another video I'm going to show you, and it's some of you know who this is. This is Tom Horn. He actually died in 2023, and he was an author, a writer. He founded Sky Angel Network. He hosted a lot of talk shows. Here I think he's a guest on ProphecyWatchers.com with I think his name is Gary Stearman. You'll see him in a second. And so he's talking about Revelation 9, but he's bringing into it the aspect of CERN. That's why I wanted you to know a little bit more background on CERN and how this could possibly be what the explanation is for what's happening in Revelation 9 with the locust creatures coming out of the bottomless pit.
In Revelation 9:1:1, that's Revelation 9:11, you have this, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. In the Greek tongue, his name is Apollyon. Apollyon is Apollo,
Right.
ancient Greek god.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we've done shows before where we've talked about the prophecy on the Great Seal of the United States of America, which is taken from the Kume Sibyl's predictions.
Yes.
That at the end of time, Apollo will return and that he will rule the new golden age. That's where the Novus Ordo Seclorum on the Great Seal comes from.
Right.
The new world order. But before the Sibyl prophesied that, it was in Scripture. It was predicted by the prophets of old that the day would come in which that doorway is going to open. It's going to be a terrible time. Transgenic entities are going to come up, these locusts, right, come up out of the bowels of the earth, torturing humanity. And yet, I find it very interesting that in verse 21 of that same chapter you were quoting from, chapter 9, it says, and yet they, the people being tortured by what's coming up out of the earth, it says, and yet they repented not of their sorcery, and this is the Greek word pharmakia, which we all know in the Bible was forbidden. This is the effort to make contact with entities on the other side of a dimensional veil.
Now, you could use drugs, as some people do, like LSD, to try to move yourself over to the other side and contact alien entities. There are various kinds of mind-altering compounds that people use to experiment with this. They're called sorcerers, by the way, in the Bible. But then there is, if you will, an electromechanical means of penetrating the veil, and that's where CERN comes in. And what I want for you to do at this time is just talk about CERN.
Okay.
Background it a little bit, and let's talk about what you see when you walk up to the main headquarters of CERN, that famous statue.
Sure, yeah. So sitting right outside of the main headquarters is the god Shiva,
Yes.
which is the Hindu god of destruction. This is the god that destroys everything at the molecular level and then recomposes it, puts it back together. And actually the prophecies around Shiva is that he will put it back together and give birth to a new world order, to a new golden age, right? So it's very reminiscent of that Apallian prophecy that is on the Great Seal. And of course, we know that the day is coming where Abaddon is going to rise. And it's interesting that the role that he plays in relationship to the coming Antichrist, the king of the world for a short period of time, because Paul says to Timothy that the Antichrist is the son of perdition. And the Greek word there, perdition, is Apollyon, Apollo, right?
Apollo.
Revelation 17:8, the beast will rise up out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, Apollyon, Apollo. So this Abaddon character, this spirit of Abaddon, is going to rise up and take its place, incarnation of some kind, demonic, almost like a blasphemy of the resurrection of Christ, right? A second coming, but a dark second coming. And he will play the role for a period of time as Antichrist. Now, you asked me about CERN and you asked me about the Large Hadron Collider. We should acknowledge that probably not everybody at the Large Hadron Collider is in league with the devil, right?
Right.
These are particle physicists. They're trying to understand the nature of matter, right?
Sure.
They were looking for the Higgs boson some years ago, which
God particle.
the God particle, right? They think they found it, and it would illustrate that there is a Higgs field. But the other thing they're looking for there is they're looking for gravitons. Now, what does the 17-mile long particle collider, what does it do? It accelerates protons to almost the speed of light. And then using magnets, it squeezes the pathway. They're going in both directions, squeezes the pathway down to about the size of a human hair. And then literally trillions of these protons crash into each other and they burst apart into their subatomic parts, right?
Yes.
And they have cameras that are fixed inside of the Large Hadron Collider taking pictures of that moment. Now, what they think they have saw is certain particles that they think make up gravity. Gravity is made out of gravitons, they believe. That's the theory. But gravitons in string theory are not bound to the Earth. They're a weak particle that can escape into parallel realities. Specifically, that is like the number one thing they are looking for, and why Sergio Bertolucci said, we're going to send something through to a parallel universe. What was he talking about? Well, gravitons, they believe they have filmed them literally moving away somewhere. Matter doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
It decays into another particle. It becomes something else. It doesn't just disappear. But they think they have filmed gravitons literally disappearing, going into a parallel reality. Now, you can watch a video that was made by I can't think of his first name. His last name is Green, but people can go out and they can Google this and find it. They made a documentary a while back in which one of the physicists is saying, if gravitons are escaping into a parallel world, then once we learn how to control gravitons, how to control their spin or whatever, we can put them together like in a binary code. We can put them together in a stringed message, and we'll be able to send a message through into that parallel reality saying, We're here, come and visit us. And that's what he meant when he said, we're going to send something through and something may come back. This is a reply being sent back from a parallel reality. So they literally are trying to make contact with those that they believe exist on the other side of a dimensional veil.
Sort of a hyper-technical method of sorcery or of mediumship, if you will, trying to move into the realm of a spirit world as we would think of it ordinarily, except they're using mechanical and electronic means to do this.
Right, but see, we don't really know, like people have asked me in the past, what about the Tower of Babel?
Yeah.
So Nimrod, this Gibborim of the old world, right? This mighty hunter. He says, I'm going to build a tower whose top will reach into, it will penetrate this dimensional veil. It'll reach into heaven. And God looks down and says they will accomplish what they had intended to do. One of the best articles I ever read some while back was written by this fabulous scholar by the name of Gary Stearman, in which he was talking about, what was that effort? What were they trying to do there?
Yeah.
This was like a high level of angelic technology, right? They're trying to build a device, a contraption of some kind that will somehow allow them to peer into or walk into Shamayim, the dwelling place of the watcher angels, the dwelling place of God.
And I believe that with all my heart. A fine reading of the Bible illustrates that there's always a group of men who are trying to contact, in the illegal sense, trying to make contact with the gods. And here we have a couple of names, Abaddon, Apollyon, and then Shiva, the god of destruction. All of these three gods appear to me to be the same God,
right? The
god of destruction. And the idea being that you destroy this world, and out of the world, the destruction comes a new order of things, a new world. For a moment, let's talk about CERN. The geographic location, that's kind of important because it seems to be located over an ancient site of some sort. Also, some distance away is a tunnel that was recently in the news called the Gothard Base Tunnel, and there was a ceremony there. Let's talk about some of these things.
Yeah, so CERN, the location of CERN is right up on the Swiss border with France, and it was built literally over the top of an ancient temple to the god Apollo. In fact, the ancient name for that very location is called Apolliacum, basically the tomb of Apollo, the home of Apollo. And they believe that this was built, the Romans believe this set over the top of the Abyssos, the abyss, the underworld, or what the book of Revelation might call the bottomless pit,
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And that Abaddon, Apollo, was down inside there, the king of this underworld location. They built the Large Hadron Collider so much over the top of it, they actually had to stop during construction to let archaeologists come in to remove some of the debris from that ancient temple. So that by itself was very interesting. Not far from there, you mentioned the Gothard Tunnel, and people can go to Google, go to YouTube and type in Gothard Tunnel, satanic ceremony, type in some keywords like that. And they'll be shocked, really, at the ceremony, the all-day long ceremony that was conducted at the inauguration of this tunnel. The tunnel had been under construction for over 17 years. They finally got all the way through the mountain. But, the leader of Germany, the leader of France, all these countries came together. And it is one of the most, well, let me just be frank, one of the most demonic things I've ever seen in the world. They have a giant screen that is depicting a portal, a doorway, right? And at one time, it even seems to show the arms. It's interesting. It's like an artistic mix of the arms from Shiva, the multi-arms of Shiva doing the cosmic dance, and the atlas coming up out of CERN, the different arms off CERN. Somebody mixed those two together to illustrate the cosmic dance that's happening at CERN. So they tied this tunnel ceremony into what's going on at CERN, but then they started showing what's coming up. A giant awakens, right? And this giant starts moving up from under the underworld. With him are Cernunnos and the goat-headed demons and the three-faced goddesses like Hecate of ancient times. They're literally depicting all of the ancient gods being invited to come through this doorway. Well, then soon these actors illustrate that they've made it through the doorway. Now they're in our reality, and there's a goat-headed man, and he's having
In costume.
yeah, a goat-headed man in costume. He's having copulation with a woman in a red dress. We know where this comes from out of the book of Revelation, right? Out of that is born another goat-headed entity that then becomes the king of all of earth, and all of the people at the end of it are bowing down and worshiping this king that came through this doorway, this portal, this goat-headed entity. Well, it's very, very satanic. And yet, if you think about, the other part of what we're doing here is we're talking about literal Bible prophecy, that this day is going to come, right? This Antichrist, Apollyon, this entity is going to reemerge on the world scene. And when you think of that, and then you pause for a moment and you think about the spirit of the age, how all over the United States right now, Satan clubs are opening on children's grade school public grounds. Right here in Oklahoma, you've had an effort for them to want to erect a Baphomet, satanic statue. On public grounds.
The goat-headed demon.
Another thing people can Google and YouTube and watch is a parody of a satanic sacrifice actually conducted by CERN employees back behind the gate, where you have to have a pass to even get in back there, in front of the Shiva statue, black hooded individuals walking out. A woman walks out, lays down, a guy sticks a knife down into her heart, and the guy with the camera starts freaking out, Now, CERN investigated it, and they admitted that it was their own employees that had conducted this parody, but they said it was just a parody. It was not real. Nobody really died. Well, I'll let the conspiracy theorist guys try to figure out if somebody really died or not. The point for me was all high-level Satanists know that parody is important. Talismans are important. Symbolism is important. Those are the instruments that you use to make an invitation for supernaturalism to enter into your plane of existence.
And it all comes back to Revelation 9. As you're talking, I'm just thinking back, and Revelation 9:2 says, by the way, it talks about an angel coming down to earth, and he opened the bottomless pit. And with a key, by the way. And the interesting thing about the bottomless pit, if you go to the Greek, which I have done and studied that, it means the well shaft of the abyss. In other words, the Greek word is describing not just a pit as we would think of an open pit, but rather a tunnel. The tunnel to the abyss. Now, this idea of a tunnel leading to another, if you will, dimension is very much at the heart of CERN.
Oh, and at physics, the heart of physics. Einstein talked about it, an Einstein-Rosen bridge, being able to travel through a wormhole. Einstein also, some of the Greek implication there from bottomless implies boundless. And this is all Einstein's theory of time. If you travel far enough, because time is circular, you travel far enough through time, you're going to wind up right back at the beginning, right? It's the ancient Ouroboros, the serpent eating his tail, that there is no end to it. And that's what's partly implied here. So imagine that in the book of Revelation, we're actually talking about a high level of physics.
And it's funny how physics is merging with the occult, and it has been for some time now. There have been a lot of occultists in, for example, the National Space programs, in JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories. There have been a lot of occultists in the ranks of those people. How do these people find their way into super scientific endeavors?
Well, now you just mentioned something that also raises another question, because we've been talking a lot about the election of Donald Trump, and I had said I believe that God put his finger on the pause button, and the church probably doesn't even realize the opportunity yet that they have been given, or how bad it could have been if it had gone a different way. And we don't get into politics and pick political favorites and do any of that kind of stuff. But one thing that was made manifest, you mentioned JPL, the Jet Propulsion's laboratory founder, actually many years ago, he was a student of Aleister Crowley, and so was the founder of the Church of Scientology. And those guys studied Aleister Crowley's 1918 ritual called the Amalantra working, right?
Yeah, and by the way, Crowley called himself the Beast.
The Beast, yeah, 666, the Antichrist, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to be. And but Crowley now, he said that he conducted this ritual. He opened a doorway, and he said an entity came through it and presented itself to him. He called it Lam, L-A-M. People can Google that and look at the image he drew, which is mysteriously very much like the alien grays of later years, right?
Right. Yeah.
But well, anyway, Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard were students of his, OTO, and they wanted to repeat that ritual. So what they did was they conducted a series of sex magic rituals called the Babylon, B-A-B-A-L-O-N, Babylon working. The purpose of the Babylon working was to try to open a doorway, but to bring through it the spirit of Babylon, the whore of Babylon, as they called it, so that spirit, the archetype divine feminine, could become incarnate in a female child and then grow up to become the whore, mislead the world, basically, be part of the Antichrist system.
In other words, they were seeking occult power.
They were seeking occult power. Now, they claim they were successful. In fact, Jack Parsons publishes kind of a celebratory statement in his biography, which he was writing when he blew himself up at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, but in which he says that in 1946 they were successful and a female child was conceived and born in 1947, and that you would go on to become the most powerful feminist and all of the world have great political clout. Now, if you look into the WikiLeaks scandal, there's some stuff there that, and I don't know how much of this we want to go into. We might want to flesh this out some other time, some other way.
I think a healthy allusion.
An allusion, well, so, Spirit Cooking, Tony Podesta is using a government server to email John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. And by the way, I don't know that Hillary knew anything about any of this.
But within that circle of people, and we're talking about ritual magic.
Ritual magic, dark ritual magic comes right out of Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law.
Okay, I have to stop you right here. And there may be some of you out there saying, good night, I don't want to know about this stuff.
Right.
What value is there to the Christian in knowing this stuff? That is, in understanding what's going on in the world today.
Right. Well, a couple of things. One, because we need to understand spiritual warfare. We need to know how to pray and what to pray about and why we would pray, right? We need to know that there is an anti-Christian spirit that is moving towards Abaddon ascending, that the spirit is alive in the world today. But we also need to know that perhaps now, for a time, God put the brakes on and God is giving the church a chance to be preachers of the gospel. In another program we did, we talked about the book Final Fire, and are we now at the dawn of another great awakening, right? I think this is a moment in time. And I would want to be very clear once again, I am not saying that Hillary is the whore of Babylon, and I am not saying, right, that...
Okay, I'm glad you cleared that up.
I'm just saying there are people around her that believe that. Now, she is looking forward now to the year 2020 as a possible presidential run. I don't know if she could stay healthy enough to be able to do that. But if she did run in 2020, she would be 72. And that is the highest number in all of occultism, directly connected to the Watchers, who are the ones who originally had plans and still do have plans, the fallen angels, the Gibborim in the underworld, the Raphaim that may or may not rise, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of occult numerology, and you could see it in these people that were around her. So we don't like to think about that, right? I don't want to think that some of the people in our government are practicing magic. I don't want to think that that is true.
Well, we wouldn't be talking about this today if it weren't for the fact that we live in a wicked and evil world in which people are trying to short circuit their way to spiritual grandeur. They don't want to go through God. They don't want to go through the Lord Jesus Christ. They want to create their own system. And the Bible is full of this. That is, from one end of the Bible to the other, there are those groups of people who attempt illegally to enter the vaults of power, and God destroys them one after another. And the next great destruction of these people is seen in the book of Revelation.
Right. Well, and also this idea, this quest to open a doorway. I've thought for some time that this is like the most overlooked aspect of end times prophecy, is connected literally to the opening of the gates of the earth and also the windows of heaven. So when we're talking about revival, you know, there are verses, I will open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing upon you. Jesus says to his disciples, from henceforth you shall see the windows of heaven opened and angels ascending and descending. So it isn't just negative, right? There are doorways, there are gateways, but then there also are the gateways of the earth. Revelation 9 is one of them. Isaiah 13, where he talks about the area around Babylon, open the gates, ye ruler, I give command, and I bring them. Giants are coming to fulfill my wrath. So the earth is more dynamic than the average person ever thinks about. I mean, we go out to get in our car to drive to Walmart. The last thing on my mind is I'm driving over a crust under which there are supernatural entities. I'm not thinking about this, right?
That's right.
And yet, that's exactly how the Bible describes the earth itself, inside which there is Sheol, Hades, and there is angels that are bound beneath the surface of the great river Euphrates, and on and on. So that's partly why we wrote this book. And one other final thing, I know we're going to run out of time here. To most Christians today, they don't understand a large part of the mission of Jesus Christ when he came to the earth, but he came to reverse what had started at Mount Hermon, where the Hebrews believed that was the gateway to the underworld.
And in fact, it's interesting that we're talking today about portals and gateways, and Mount Hermon is well known as the place where the 200 rebellious angels came down through some kind of portal and entered into the world, and they became the source of great power in the ancient world, and people courted them to be their servants, I suppose, in order to have access to that power.
Right. Well, in fact, the Hebrews, what they call the Enochian worldview, the worldview based on the book of Enoch, that was pretty much the Hebrews at the time of Jesus Christ in flesh. That was their worldview. So when he stands in Caesarea Philippi at the base of Mount Hermon and says, the gates of hell will not prevail against my church, what that meant to them is lost on an awful lot of people today. Don't even understand that he was literally rebuking the powers of the watchers, and he was saying, you might have tried to stop me, but I'm here. 3 days later, he goes up on the mountain, and right there he's transfigured on Mount Hermon. He did that on purpose, to put a stick in the eye of the watchers, and then he goes into the underworld and he preaches to those spirits in prison and says, here I am. And then he rises up from the dead with the keys to some of those gates. So so that's why we wrote the book, to try to flesh out some of the deeper meaning around, Abaddon, but also more than just Abaddon, this bigger idea that the earth is dynamic, gates did open in the past, are going to open again.
Yeah, this was a good video. I really liked Tom Horn. Of course, like I said, he died about 2 years ago, and I believe this video, because it's reference to Hillary and an upcoming election, this video has to be, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old, but yet still very timely in the topic. And I want us to look at one more slide, and it is this one. Let me see if I can easily explain this. This is a chart showing at the North Pole, which at the very North Pole, there are 7 months of continuous daylight. Of course, as you get down a little further south, it's not quite as long as 7 months. It can be here at the Arctic Circle, they're like 3 months of daylight, and doesn't quite get dark. But at the very very close to the North Pole, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of where there's no daylight at all, long night, and 7 months of continuous daylight. Now, why would we even bring this out? Revelation 9:4 says about these creatures, these locusts that came out of the bottomless pit. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth or any green thing or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. It's just interesting that here's 5 months of darkness. This happens every year. At the North Pole. The 7 months of continuous daylight. Within these 7 months, you get all the feasts of the Lord. You get Passover around here, Feast of Unleavened Bread. Then you get first fruits, and then you get Shavuot, which is Feast of Pentecost, and then you move. There's the Feast of Oil is in there. You come up around this area. September, you get the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and Sukkot. In these months of continuous daylight. But these were to torment for 5 months. Why 5 months? There's 5 months at the South Pole that's total darkness. There's 5 months at the North Pole where there's total darkness. I'm not sure what all can be made out of that. There's probably not too many other explanations for why they were tormenting for 5 months. Probably take a lot more to try to delve into what this chart means. Just wanted to share that. But I'm going to leave you with about 2.5 minutes of this song called Wake Up, Final Generation by Tribe Song. And this, I actually emailed, her name is Mia, that makes these videos. They're incredible. They use a lot of AI generated graphics, and even the music, the vocals are greatly enhanced by technical means, but it's being used as a great ministry. And I'm just going to play 2.5 minutes of this song I found to end with called Wake Up, Final Generation.
The earth is quaking, nations are shaking, oceans are roaring, crime is soaring, mountains are tumbling, the world is crumbling, hurricanes and floods shedding innocent blood. Disasters keep coming, panicked people are running, martyrs are dying, children are crying, death and destruction are unrelenting, but still, no one is repenting. Wake up, these are signs of the end-time tribulation. We are living in the final generation, and we are the remnant of Revelation. Watchmen on the wall, standing strong and tall against the abomination of desolation. We are the final generation, a light to the nations, born for such a time for our light to shine. We are the final generation. The seas are churning, cities are burning, dark skies are hailing, men's hearts are failing, black smoke is thickening, the stench is sickening, armies are assembling, politicians are trembling, the horsemen are riding, the elite are in hiding, the dragon is fuming, Armageddon is looming, plagues and pestilence still. No one is repenting.